How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a quick impromptu video explaining business on eBay with a couple of poker cards, okay? And I personally love poker because I feel as if it reflects on a lot of aspects of life as well as business, right? Because constantly it is about making good choices. Your chips represent you managing your money very well, of how much percentage that you put in and how much you get back, as well as there's going to be moments where if you make the right move, you still could experience bad luck. And there are times where you did the wrong move and you could still experience some wins. But generally, if you are making the right decision most of the time, you will be a winner in the long run. Because that exactly explains why you see many poker players, who are high level, they lose hands, but they still have millions of dollars, is because they win most of the time because they're always making the correct decision most of the time. So we're going to go ahead and dive down. I have the overhead cam set up and I'm going to explain the difference of eBay business models to you guys so that you can clearly see with visual cues of what you're doing versus what you might be missing out on. Okay, so you guys ready? Let's do it. All right, guys, so in front of me I have two decks of cards, right? So the ones on my left is going to represent eBay reselling, and then the ones on my left is what I do, which is an eBay traditional business model. All right, so I'm going to flip them over, and then you'll see that I allowed a color joker to represent the reseller model, and then a black and white joker to represent the traditional model. So black and white for nostalgic black and white photos. So this is your grandpappy's method of doing business, right? It's his father's business and his father's business. It's been around forever, okay? The principles in this, and this is what I do. Now, the reason why this is color is because this is modern, right? This is the new way of doing things. However, you'll constantly hear the gurus every now and then, they'll say something like, don't reinvent the wheel and to have expertise in what you're doing. That all follows under this principle because this is the wheel and this is the wheel that they're trying to reinvent. So while telling you not to reinvent the wheel, they push the wheel, the new reinvented wheel to you. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so we're going to begin by showing you guys exactly how listings work, right? So you already know that in order to do a good listing, you need 4 key things. You're going to need the title, the item specifics, photos, and description. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use kings to represent those 4 elements, all right? So why kings? Because this is as best as you can do, all right? It could be 4 queens, it could be 4 jacks to represent an A grade, a B grade, and a C grade, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you guys are going to be doing listings where you put a lot of good effort into the title, the item specifics, photos, and the description. So the problem in this particular setup, all right, is that if the resellers are telling you to hurry up and put up listings, 20 listings a day, 35 listings a day. So if you have all this work ahead of you, right, you want to put it up quickly. You know yourself, right? How much effort are you putting into all 4 aspects of your listing? Are you really putting in effort into all aspects of your listings if you have to put up that many listings every single day? I imagine that if you're going to go for a lot of speed, some precision and accuracy is going to get sacrificed in the process. So in the traditional business model, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's definitely going to be A grades on this side, 100%. Because if I'm going to do a listing, I'm going to shoot for the moon, or it's not worth my time to do it. If I'm going to put all my studies and effort and whatever to come up with the item and we're going to try it, we're going to give it a fair shot before we declare that this is a dud or this is a stud. Okay, so let's assume that in order to get here, we need to put in, a lot of labor. So in front of me, I have some chips. This is going to represent an act of labor. And what I mean by that is you sourced an item and I had to source my item too. That is an act of labor, right? That we had to go out of our way to do this. So you have to process your item, don't you? You have to, I don't know, clean it up, examine it, something, get it ready for photos. So that is an act of labor. When I receive my shipment, well, I have to check everything to make sure that nothing was damaged in transit and I got the right shipment, right? So I have to examine as well. So now we both have 2 acts of labor. You have to take photographs of yours, right? Well, I got to take photographs of my stuff as well that I brought in. And then you have to, what next? You have to catalog and then list your item. I'm going to catalog and list my item. And then eventually you're going to put it into inventory, and I'm going to organize mine into my inventory in my warehouse, right? So ultimately, we have arguably the same amount of labor put into our listing. So if you're listing, assuming that you put, a effort into all 4 aspects, and I did exactly the same thing, here's the problem. When the eBay algorithm looks at this, we all put in the exact same effort, okay? So if this is the start line, this is the least that we can do. You see what I'm saying? So putting in all that effort to the front end of the work, this just gets you to the start line. This is just your buy-in to play the game. This doesn't mean anything. This is the minimum least that you can do. All right, so now we have to start running a simulation, because the question is, how would Cassini, the algorithm, eBay, however you want to frame it, know how to rank all the listings and stuff, right? How does one listing get better than the other one when they're fresh listings? Now, in this scenario, right, if you have a couple of queens, a couple of jacks in here, then you're probably going to be a little bit further behind the starting line, you see? And then if you're all up to speed, then you got to start right here. That's basically the pass and no pass line of what Cassini is when you initially put up a fresh listing. Okay, so now we have to talk about the back end of the listing, all right? So over time, as something is replenishable and the listing doesn't go away, it starts to collect something called metadata. So metadata in this example, I represent with 4 aces. So the 4 aces in front of us, I've ranked them from most important suit to least important suit. So the most important suit that you're going to be dealing with is the sales, right? And then the second is the conversion rate. Then you have your click-through rate. And then the diamonds is more of a miscellaneous thing that, is just going to represent watchers. So basically all 4 of these things, they accumulate over time. You collect it over time as long as the listing doesn't go away and it keeps on selling. So quick note, the best thing about having watchers is that if you have holiday sales and whatever, every single time you have, like, let's say, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 watchers of one of your long going items, then you could go ahead and then send them offers during these holidays, and you get a couple of sales that way. So that's pretty cool. All right, so the next thing is the click-through rate, right? Click-through rate just means how many views that you got. Then there is the sales that you made, right? So once you sell something, right, the difference between the sell and the views is what your conversion rate is. So these are the things that Cassini is going to scan over to know how to push your listing further and further into the rankings, right? So over time, this business model is going to collect a lot of metadata, and this model just basically isn't going to collect a lot of data. So when you think of exactly how eBay works, it's basically like its own little little internet, right? It's a marketplace, and every single listing that we put on, basically we can treat it like an individual website that sells one item from our shop. So when I put up this listing, I want this thing to sell over and over and over again, right? So let's run a simulation of exactly what happens. Well, in the beginning, I'm probably going to get a couple of views because I did my due diligence over here and made sure that I had, A-grade content in my listing. So I'm going to get a couple of views, right? So we get a couple of clubs, and then eventually, we'll probably have like a single watcher or something like that. And then finally we make a sale. Every single time we make a sale, it also grants us another conversion as well, right? So this is a sales history and this is a conversion history. So now we have all this metadata in this listing. Cassini is going to see this and then move us up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So eventually our listings are always going to be in the front page, the second page. So if you're wondering to yourself, hey, how come my listings don't make it to the front or the front page or the second page and stuff? The reason is this. If we were to simulate this business model, what happens? Well, the same thing, because assuming that we put in A-grade content, you get a couple of views as well. And before it sells, maybe you even have a single watcher. But then the moment that you get a sale, before it could even really count as a conversion rate, what happens? You only had 1 unit of this. So this listing goes away because it's sold. You get your money, but this listing is done. So what happens? Everything else goes along with it, right? Your A-grade content, all the metadata, and the worst part is your labor. All the work that you put into putting up this listing is now gone, is done. This is what we call one and done items. And this is my biggest criticism of what eBay Reseller is, that they tell you to do over and over again. If anything, this is exactly what the burnout is, because you're starting from scratch every single time. So now I have to get a new item again, right? And then I have to put up A-grade content, right? And then hopefully I have, so I put in all that work, and then I just want to put up, more and more of the listings, right? And here's the bad part. When you have many listings, right? Okay, you spent money to buy each and one of them. And if it doesn't sell, then your money's tied up in the listing. But when the listing does sell, okay, I get my money back, and then this item is sold and it's done, right? But again, all the work is gone with it. This is why I'm telling you guys, right? You have to keep in mind that the groundwork that you put in yesterday, plus the success of today, contributes nothing to the stability and growth of the business tomorrow. While over here, right, this item is sold many times over and over again. So it's way ahead in front of the line compared to all the new listings that have to start from here. Again, you're starting from scratch every single time. And that's why people feel like, man, I feel like I'm starting from scratch all the time. It feels like it's resetting all the time. This is exactly what's happening. Your gut, your intuition is telling you this is exactly what's happening. See? So over here, we sold the item over and over again, right? When we originally sourced this item, we would have sourced it at like, units of 50 to maybe 250, whatever the minimum order quantity is, we're going to try it out. Now, the difference is that I don't source many items at one time. I spent a lot of time sourcing 1 or 2 items at a time. So the likelihood of this, matching the market needs, I've already spent a lot of time simulating it in my mind. And, do people want this? Does this match actual customer needs? Do I have a lot of data from either reviewers, what people are looking for? I know what their gripes are. I've adjusted this item to come in the colors that they're looking for, to come in some features that they're looking for. Maybe this is a Frankenstein item where I took the best of both worlds and then put them together and then offered it at a reasonable price to the market. And that's why it works. So sure, do I get some swings and misses sometimes? Absolutely. But what ends up happening is that most likely this thing is just not going to sell as well as you thought it would, meaning that it'll just move, 2 or 3 a day. If an item moves like 2 or 3 a day and you only have like 100 units or like 200 units, you're going to be done with that in time. So you might not necessarily even need to price it down. You would just, let it phase out and it's fine. If the item is doing very well, then that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for more sales, right? That gives us more conversion over time. And then because of that, Cassini is going to bump this item up even more to the front of the pages, right? To the top of the searches, so that we get even more views, right? And because we have more views, the chances of us collecting more watchers, right, is going to increase. And then we're going to get more sales, more sales, more sales, more conversion, more conversion, more conversion. So, you know, you're going to see a hot mess on this side of work and labor, and it's all compounding on top of each other until this item is moving 4, 5, 6, 7 every day. And all of this, okay, is a sales channel that we developed, right? So that every single time this thing sells out, all we do is just reorder and restock. So if I had to reorder and restock, the compounded work over here is just reorder, restock, reorder, restock. But then every single time we reordered and restocked, we have already sold hundreds in between. So this is well worth our time to develop. And that's what I mean. If you're going to do an item, you should have just tried to shoot for the moon from the beginning. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do that on my channel. So eventually what's going to happen here is these things starts to sell on its own. So what do you do with your time instead? You would go out of your way to research and develop a second item. Now, here's the good thing about this side, right? If you concentrate it in your niche, it's very likely that the next item that you come up with would be a complementary item, right? So this would be, for me, because I'm in eBay Motors and I do car accessories, this would be like a floor mat. This would be a steering wheel cover. This would be a seat cover. This would be an air freshener. It's complementary to each other. And then people come to me because they're like, hey, you know, I know this brand and I've bought other things from them for my car. And then before you know it, you have brand trust and you have brand loyalty. You can't do that on the reseller model if they're one and done items, if they're random items, or you're just selling other people's brands, right? You have to develop your own stuff, and I will teach you guys how to do that, okay? So if you enjoyed that lesson, guys, give it a like, consider subscribing. There will be a full course in my channel that I'll develop over time, okay? Take care, everyone.